Desynced is a fun game, but difficult for new players. In this video, you'll find a list of no-nonsense tips and tricks to help new players get over the learning curve. There won't be any useless filler or faff. It'll be direct and straight to the point. But first, here's a 60-second overview of Desynced for those of you who are still deciding whether the game is right for you, but feel free to skip forward if you've already decided and want to get straight to the tips and tricks. If Factorio, Satisfactory, and Dyson Sphere program had a three-way baby without any conveyor belts, you'd get Desynced. Your spaceship is broken, so you send drones down to the planet's surface to mine, smelt, and process various elements into increasingly complex materials and components until you have what you need to fix your ship. Your buildings and units are effectively empty shells with different sized sockets. You fabricate tools and behavior modules to fit into those sockets before assigning repetitive tasks for units or groups of units to follow. Eventually, you can attempt to automate everything with programming, so your bots and buildings dance in perfect unison while you figure out which part of your latest programming is causing a bot to go slightly mental, instead of delivering that metal bar over there where it's needed. So if you enjoy automation, exploration, a mysterious story, base building, and hostile alien bugs, then Desynced might be your cup of tea. With that out of the way, let's get straight into tip number 1, how to destroy or dismantle buildings. There's no delete key or delete option when you select a building, but like most things on this list, it's simple when you know how. For this, you'll need to create a deconstructor, which is made using your assembler. Once made, you can drag and drop it into the inventory in one of your bots, then hold Control to equip it to a socket. Then you'll see this option next to the deconstructor. Click it and then click on the building you want to deconstruct. Sometimes the bot will ignore you, but it's just a case of clicking on the right part of the building. It's also best to disconnect your bot from the network by pressing this button, so it doesn't get distracted by other tasks on the network. Speaking of the network, if you press P or click on this button here, you'll see the power network, which is also the logistics network. If you find your bots are ignoring materials that they should be picking up, it's worth checking that the unit or building the materials are stored in is connected to the network. You can connect and disconnect each unit and building by clicking this button on and off. At first, you basically want all bots and buildings connected to the network, so all of your bots will fulfill all tasks and use all resources in your base. Once you deconstruct a building, you'll notice resources are dropped on the floor. They'll need to be manually shifted to a building or bot to be considered a part of the logistics network. The bots will just ignore them if they're left on the floor. Next up, if a bot goes outside of your power grid, it will run out of power and run slow. It also won't be connected to the logistics network, so won't help with tasks, and basically needs you to control it directly. You'll also notice that if you try and build a building out of the power grid, nothing will happen, as it needs to be on the logistics network for bots to bring the materials to build it. With that in mind, let's look at how you expand your power and logistics grid, which you'll need to do once you've used up the resources next to your base. The key in the early game is to construct small power fields using an assembler. These power fields can be attached to a bot who can now be used to extend your network. Bear in mind that if your power field bot moves too far from your main power grid, it will no longer be connected to that power grid. But you can use several bots to form a daisy chain to remain connected, as long as there's no break in the chain. You could just use bots to expand your network, but it's best to build a small one-by-one building and transfer the power field from the bot to that building to free up the bot to do something else. Using one bot with a power field to enable you to build as many one-by-one buildings as you like, and then transferring power fields to them, is an easy way to permanently expand your network. A small but useful tool is the request item option. Each building and unit has this down arrow for it to request any item you like. If that item exists, a bot on the network will deliver it. This is particularly useful if you're not actually sure whether you've already made something and have it sitting around in storage. Just request the item and see if it gets delivered. It's also useful when you've just made a one-by-one building, so you can request the power field for it to be delivered. Now let's look at a basic mining setup. There are many different ways of doing this, but this method works nicely and is great for beginners. Once you find resources away from your base, expand your power and logistics network so that they cover the new resources. Take a bunch of miners up to this resource and build a storage block nearby. If you right-click on the resource, the miners will start mining. You don't have to, but you might want to disconnect them from the logistics network so they don't get distracted by other tasks. To get all of them to deliver their resources to the nearby storage block, select them, then hold Control and right-click on the storage block. They'll mine, deliver to the storage, then get back to mining. But you'll want a different bot to deliver the resource to your main storage back at base. Using a dashbot with upgraded storage is fun, but you use whatever you like. To get the Kessel run up and running, you must firstly right-click on the Logistics Network tab on your chosen bot, then tick the Transport Route option at the bottom. Now, all you need to do is tell it where to pick up from, then where to drop off. Click and drag from the Go To register to the storage you want them to pick up from. Then do the same from your storage register and drag it to the storage you want it to drop off to. And that's it. Your miners are mining, your delivery bot is delivering, and you should have a steady stream of that resource being delivered to the storage of your choosing in your main base. Next up is power generation, which, once you get up and running, can be a real pain in the arse to ensure you have enough power, especially at night. Now, you can faff around with crystal power and solar power, but I recommend heading straight to wind power as soon as possible, which you can unlock by researching basic robotics and then expanded power. Wind turbines are a reliable source of power, and if you set them all up on the plateau, they will generate double the energy, so definitely do that. Just don't venture too far onto the plateau, as you will find a nasty bug-shaped surprise. It's best to build some capacitors and batteries just in case, but with medium-sized wind turbines, you'll be able to keep on top of your power needs for quite some time. The next tip is to make sure you don't neglect exploring. I ignored it for ages, but found that the little bonus pieces of gear are really quite helpful. I got a large wind turbine for free, which was pretty awesome, and you can get other such goodies that will help you out, so definitely explore. The puzzles are a bit weird, but if you start in the 4 corners, it seems to work after not too long. When you start to manufacture more complex materials, you'll find that some buildings will refuse to construct them. This could be because that building simply doesn't have enough storage slots. For example, if a machine requires 3 separate resources to build something, but that building only has 2 inventory slots, it can't physically start the process. So keep an eye on how many resource slots a building has, as that will have an impact on what you can ask it to do and how many different machines can be working within it at one time. For example, 1x1 buildings with space for 2 fabricators only have 2 storage slots, so they can use 2 fabricators to make things that only require 1 resource in and produces 1 resource out. But if it requires 2 resources in, then you'll need to use the 1x1 that has 4 storage slots, but they only have space for 1 fabricator in them. Along similar lines, it took me a while to figure out that you can use multiple buildings to speed up research. Yes, I'm dumb. So you can create buildings with a medium slot for an uplink, and happy days, you research faster. But inventory slots come into play again. If the research requires several resources, that building can only contribute to your research if it has enough space to fit them all. Your standard medium 1x1 only has 2 inventory slots. So if the research requires 3 resources, you'll need to put the uplink into a building with at least that many inventory slots for it to actually work. The next one is pretty basic, but incredibly important. Leave space between your clusters of buildings. 2 squares at a minimum, ideally 3. I found this out the hard way and get traffic jams and all sorts going wrong, so plan ahead and leave space for your bots to move around. It'll make a big difference later on. At first, you'll probably think the visual register is actually quite pointless, but there is something rather handy you can do with it. When you've decided which product a particular building is going to manufacture, but for whatever reason you haven't got the production underway, or you've paused it, you can use the visual register to select the relevant icon for the product you want that building to manufacture. It's basically a label to help you keep track of everything, especially when the machines aren't running. Why would you do the same thing over and again when you can just copy and paste? Fortunately, in Desynced, you can do just that. Simply tap C, then V, in the same way you normally would, except you don't need to hold Control down while you do it. Just C, then V to paste. You're welcome. Because each building is an empty shell that you bespoke by inserting various components, it's useful to copy and paste buildings, but you can also create blueprints, so you can create buildings and bots that are already customized without having to start from the beginning each time. It's useful. Desynced is tough at first, but boy oh boy is it an addictive game when you get over the learning curve. There is so much you can do to fully automate your base, and although the interface is confusing at first, you can use it to do remarkable things. Take this robotics assembler, for example. Part of the interface shows the materials that it's lacking to build whatever it's currently trying to build. We can link that to an assembler in the same building so that the assembler automatically creates whatever the robotics assembler requires. And when you start to include internal components that enable the assembler to communicate with the bots and other buildings via the logistics network, you start to get a glimpse of what this game is capable of. If you have any tips of your own that will help new players get into this amazing game, please let us all know in the comments below. And if you found the video useful, please like and consider subscribing to support the channel. See ya!